Hi guys, it's Anon. Welcome on my channel. Today we will talk about something very interesting and quite rare, like a rare Pokemon. We will talk about DID, which is Dissociative Identity Disorder, in the past called Multiple Personality Disorder. So it is a mental illness that involves disruptions or breakdowns of memory, awareness, identity and or perception. DID is one of a group of conditions called dissociative disorders. These disorders are mental illnesses that involve disruptions or breakdowns of memory, consciousness, or awareness. Identity and or perception are mental functions that normally work smoothly. So yeah, your identity and perception are warped, are wicked, are not right. And so when one or more of these functions is disrupted, dissociative symptoms can result. These symptoms can be mild, but they can also be severe, to the point where they interfere with a person's general functioning, both in personal life and at work. So guys, I have a guest on the line, a guy who suffers from DID, and he will tell us about this peculiar illness and share his experiences. So, hey mate, welcome on my channel.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm tired. I'm very tired. I'm sorry for that, but I really wanted to do this podcast with you. So, how are you?
Yeah, I suppose I'm quite fine today. I had a couple of rough days, but my mind is clear at the moment.
That's very good. My mind is also very clear. Worse with like functioning, like walking and sitting straight, but I wanna do it today with you. So can you tell us something about yourself?
I'm 28 years old, and I've been diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder and a mild form of autism.
Okay, so you are on the spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, so
Maybe on
will have
multiple places.
yeah, we will have both covered, DID and autism. So all right, and okay, if that's it then, so from what I know, DID, like many other mental conditions, develop because of trauma. Dissociation can serve as a defense mechanism against the physical and emotional pain of a traumatic or stressful experience. By dissociating painful memories from everyday thought processes, a person can use dissociation to maintain a relatively healthy level of functioning as though the trauma had not occurred. So when you are stressed, you just your mind drifts somewhere else, and you are dissociated from the thought process. Okay, so is this true in your case? Have you ever had any traumas, and if yes, could you share the story with us? It's completely fine if you don't want to, and I'm sorry for asking.
No, that's completely fine. I don't mind sharing any experiences. And it is true that the disorder can be cultivated if you have similar problems like autism or bipolar. Because, for example, I was actually born with autism, but I got the dissociative disorder as an added bonus later, which was really great.
Oh yes,
So
I get
it is when you have autism, you are highly sensitive to sound or light or what have you. And in my case, I had a really bad time dealing with older people screaming in my face all the time. So I was really skittish.
Oh.
And that eventually led me to kind of regress back into myself. And
Yes.
it's it was quite a nightmare because I didn't know what kind of attitude to have or like how to respond to things. Like I just had to deal
Okay.
with it, so to say.
I get you. I have schizophrenia, and autism is the core symptom of schizophrenia.
Yes.
So I know how you feel, mate. So
Yeah.
anything more? Maybe you could describe what is this broken thought process and dissociation in your
Oh,
speech? Yeah.
I suppose I can start from the beginning. When I was an unassuming child, I was absolutely clueless as to deal with other people my age.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I developed at first this kind of imposter syndrome where, for a lack of a personality, I would just start emulating people that I thought was cool, like in mannerisms,
Mm-hmm.
inflection, tone of voice, what have you. And I was raised in a single mother household, so I spent a lot of time in front of the TV, and that yeah left quite an imprint,
Uh-huh.
like how to be social. Like for example, there's people who believe all these American high school movies are like how it goes in real life,
Yeah.
and uh,
Mm-hmm.
for me it was kind of similar because at one point I started blurring the lines between what I assumed was normal behavior and like what other people perceived.
Oh,
I had a lot
okay.
of
Mm-hmm.
time struggling to keep things clear for myself to adhere to social norms.
Oh,
And truth to be told, I still have trouble like fitting in correctly, so to speak.
I was never fitting as well, but I was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder,
Mm.
which isn't very social thing too. It's actually anti-system. It's something different than asocial. It's anti-system, but I had problems with social cues too, and sometimes I didn't know what to think of. Let's say my mother was crying and I didn't know what to do, so I was doing nothing. I was just, sitting on the floor doing nothing.
Yeah, and the sad
Hmm.
thing is that you want to help, but you just don't know how.
Exactly, exactly. I remember my mother
Um,
telling me that we should write what we feel, and she wrote that I don't give a fuck, you know. And
mm,
I wrote that I'm very sorry that my mom is crying, but I don't know what to do. And she read that, and since then we are in better relations.
for
So,
me, it was more like
mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware that I was making my mother angry.
Oh,
So I would just be completely oblivious to everything around me and sing these cartoon intros from the top of my voice. And even when my mom said stop that, I would forget about it like 10 seconds later and just keep going.
okay, I see that.
Yeah, and then she gets so mad that she chased me with a wooden spoon, and I couldn't comprehend why she was so pissed off.
All
So
right, right.
we had a lot of trouble setting a decent standard as to like how to behave in the house.
When did you develop DID? Did you started to dissociate?
I think that was around when start of high school, so or like mid high school. I think I was 14.
14. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if going through puberty and having a shitload of hormones has anything to do with it, and also the um, the actual setting of high school and seeing hundreds of stupid kids every day
Yeah.
who
Mm-hmm.
who don't care about you because they don't know
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand like how you function. So because it doesn't affect them, they don't give a shit,
Yep.
and that's extra hard on you when you have to survive high school.
For me, it
Um,
was it was hell, but I believe not fitting in. Lots of people struggle with that. They have different conditions. Some have schizophrenia. Some have, I don't know. Some have autism, right?
yeah,
Schizophrenia, and
and
yeah.
did you also try not to get any attention from people in high
Oh,
school?
Exactly. I have YouTube channel and it might look like I like it, but I don't really like attention. When I get attention like in real life, last time I was bleeding from my nose.
Oh,
Yeah, really, it happened, and I
but
was.
because of
Mhm.
like not wanting to stand out, it was very important in high school because if you don't act the norm,
Yeah,
and if you're incapable of doing so because of a debilitating mental illness, then you're gonna be targeted by other kids, and
yeah.
you're
We are gonna
like,
talk. We are gonna talk about it later.
mm.
Okay, when
Oh yeah,
I will tell you when. Okay, because this is
sure.
something that I want to talk about. But I wanted to ask you, what are the symptoms of the idea? I mean, I know what are those symptoms because I have it before me, in front of me. Sorry, but
Yes.
I want you to tell me which ones do you have, and so I have a list, and maybe I will read some symptoms, and you will tell me if you experience it. Okay?
Sure.
So one is changing levels of functioning from highly effective to disturbed, disabled.
Yeah, that's uh, I think that's the one that stands out the most from all the
Okay.
symptoms that you can have because it actually takes a lot of effort and it's really exhausting to function properly.
Yes, I
So
know.
when you build up a lot of stress and when you're about to hit your limit, you just kind of break down
Oh,
and
I know. I had so much stress that drove me into psychosis, and I had four different
oh
types of hallucinations. So, oh,
yeah,
uh,
it's sad because it could have been prevented.
yes, exactly. Second, severe headaches or pain in the other parts of the body.
Migraines
You have migraines.
mostly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you told me today that you had to take a pill.
Yeah. Sometimes when I get really stressed out, I'm like a ticking time bomb. Like there's just a migraine waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm. That sucks. Okay.
Yeah, I suppose it's when you can anticipate it, then like that's one thing. But like if you're having a long day and you're on public transit and then a migraine sets in, then you're pretty much fucked.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's pretty clear. Like these
Yes.
questions. Three. Do you experience depersonalization, which is feeling disconnected from one's own thoughts, feelings, and body?
Yeah, I think that's the core issue because it's all about a personality and how you express yourself and how you feel and how your thoughts connect with each other.
Yeah, like
Because
when you have a huge stress, you start dissociating, and you feel that you are not yourself, that you are like a narrator,
um,
right?
if I have to put it in a form of a metaphor,
Yeah.
uh, like regular people, their personalities is they start out small, but they continue to grow bigger.
Yeah.
But with the disorder, it's kind of like instead of growing your own personality, you take like a bit from here and a bit from there,
It's
and then you
frag
make this.
it's
Yeah,
fragmented.
and it's like a patchwork. It's all
Okay.
stitched together,
Oh,
and because of that, it doesn't like really feel as a whole. And there's a lot of contradicting emotions and thoughts.
I get you what you feel. Some patients with borderline personality disorder
Mm.
have this symptom that they feel like they are do not exist. They don't know how they are, what they are, how other people perceive them. Is it something
Mm.
similar?
Um,
Not quite, right?
no, no, it's uh, that's a like bipolar is quite a different animal.
Yeah. I'm beginning to thinking that I might have schizoaffective, which is bipolar plus schizophrenia, because sometimes I'm really depressed, and
Uh,
now I feel manic. Okay, let's go deeper. All right. Do
Yeah,
you
sure.
do you experience derealization, which is feeling that the surrounding environment is foreign or unreal?
Yes, all the time, because if you're struggling with your own thoughts all day, all the time,
Yeah.
then uh, it's natural for yourself to distance yourself from society because it's hard to make things go smooth. And on the other hand, are you familiar with the term gaslighting?
Gaslighting. Yeah, I heard about it.
Like,
Can you explain?
because gaslighting is a bit like when people convince you something that isn't true, even though you're really fucking sure it's true.
Yeah.
And I've been having those feelings pretty much all my life, where at one point it kind of I felt like people around me, like every person I knew, were in this conspiracy where they
Uh-huh.
uh, um,
They try to
like
force on you
like
something.
well, like they're part of some secret society where I don't fit in and I'm not allowed to
Mm-hmm.
be, you know.
I get something very similar with paranoia. Uh,
Yeah, it does
persecute.
make you paranoid when you are
Yeah.
not sure if your thoughts are even your own.
Oh Jesus! Sometimes the idea and schizophrenia are mixed. Like people think that schizophrenia is about having second personality, and
Yeah.
they hear the idea like dissociative identity, don't know what it is. They don't know what it means to dissociate.
No, because
Dissociate.
most people they get their perception on mental illness through Hollywood movies, which are always completely wrong.
Yep. Uh, there are maybe few examples of pretty good movie depictions, like in Gear Interrupted, Angelina Jolie plays antisocial personality disorder, and
Okay.
she's doing it right. But that's one example. Okay, let's go further. Do you experience depression and or mood swings?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. Um, I have to admit that
Mm-hmm.
because uh, I had such a difficulty growing up, like not being understood,
Yeah.
that my emotional development is really stunted. So uh, the mood swings aren't as bad as bipolar, but they are there. They
I see.
like I can be in a good mood for one moment, and then someone can say something that reminds me of something confrontational, and then it's like that idea is a seed that keeps growing in your mind.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Uh,
Uh-huh. I see.
so the mood swings are usually accompanied with like trains of thought.
Okay. Okay, I see. So you have this train of thoughts, they are changing, and your moods are changing, right? Or not really?
Yeah. It's like
Oh,
I don't have much control over my emotions, which sucks.
I know a bit about that too, because I have mood swings too. And let's say 1 minute I'm happy, the next minute I get anxious, and then I get angry that I
Mm.
got anxious. That
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
that I'm a weirdo, and
Or
I have to leave the party.
or when at first you feel bad because something went wrong during the day, and then you start lashing out against yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I tried not to do it anymore. I try not to give up. You know.
Yeah, it's really fucking hard to learn how to love yourself when
Uh,
you.
I actually managed to do that because like memories were coming back to me, like every shitty thing
Mm.
that I did and what happened to me. Oh, you are so lucky you can smoke. And what and before sleeping, I couldn't fall asleep because of these thoughts about these embarrassing, cringy, moments.
Oh God, I hate it. Like
I
when
hate
you're
it.
lying in bed and then at like in
So
2 in the morning, your brain is like, "Hey, remember this super awkward thing you did
yeah,
like 15 years
yeah,
ago?" Like,
yeah,
fuck.
yeah. But the best thing you can do is forgive yourself everything, even the most fucked up things. Just forgive yourself everything. Just try to do it. It took me like few hours to overcome this.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I succeeded. I forgiven myself, and I feel a lot better now.
well, it doesn't really help that having been told most of your life that you're a complete fuck up.
Oh,
Makes it a lot harder to accept yourself.
okay. So listen from me. You're not a complete fuck up. Complete fuck ups shoot heroin in German Berlin volleys.
Oh yeah.
Right? We are just autistic and mentally
We're
ill.
we're just survivors.
Yeah, we are survivors. Okay, maybe let's go further. So, do you experience anxiety? I bet you do. I bet you do.
Yeah, like I'm sure I was born anxious.
Who doesn't have anxiety in 2019, right?
But I think the cause of the anxiety is that when I'm partaking in social events, my thoughts are racing
Uh-huh.
at 100% speed all the time because I want to pose myself as normal to like not be weird or whatever. And because there's so much pressure on my train of thought and what have you, that the anxiety sets in because you also don't want to fail in front of your friends, and it's all kinds of. I think it's mostly paranoia that made me anxious.
Yeah, we suffer
Like,
from something different, but
yeah,
I know how you feel. I really do.
well, it's like not allowing yourself to relax.
Yes, exactly. It's constant like being in that worry,
Yes.
Oh, I know that. I wish I could like take off my armor and chill out and you know go with the flow and but I'm stressed all the time. I'm
Uh,
tense. That sucks.
yeah, I really envy people who are carefree all the time.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Okay, so do you have problems with eating and sleeping?
Um, I used to have a lot of trouble with sleeping, and
Uh-huh.
it, it didn't necessarily have any causes. Like sometimes I would have a great day, and then when I went to bed, I would just stare at the ceiling
Okay.
for how long. And that's maybe also because of all the intrusive thoughts that I have no control over.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
just keep coming, and they don't let you rest. They don't leave you
exactly,
alone.
exactly.
And this is actually a funny thing because of the dissociative disorder. Like my taste buds seem to change all the time.
Your taste?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
you have different um, uh, things you like when you dissociate and
yeah. I mean, at
mhm.
one point, I was interning at this media company, and like when you work at an office, you just drink coffee all day. And I
Mhm.
used to love the shit out of coffee, but then I went through a period where I just hated it.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
I don't know, it just comes with uh, this state of being.
Okay, I see.
There was this one point when I think I was 18 and I absolutely hated the taste of water for some reason.
Oh, well,
Which
I hated chocolate in the past,
ah
so that's that's uncommon. But I get you, man.
so
Uh-huh.
it can be a little unpredictable at times.
When you oversleep, it's called hypersomnia. I know because I have it.
Mm,
I have it. I
okay.
oversleep, and yeah. The next one is eighth one is problems with functioning sexuality. So, but if you don't wanna, don't answer that. My my
Um,
my libido is so low that it's
uh,
because of meds too. How is yours?
that's a good point. Well, I've been on antidepressants for quite some time. I'm off them now,
Mm-hmm.
but they what little libido I had, it totally erased that. But when I was in puberty, my libido was fine as well, and then because like
Uh-huh.
young guys are they're
Yeah.
horny all the time,
Yeah.
but I didn't feel any actual attraction
Oh.
to people.
Okay.
Like my friends would be like, "Oh, did you see that girl from that class? Her tits have gotten super big," and I would be like, "Eh."
Maybe you, I think you didn't meet the right person yet. Maybe you are very picky.
Well, I have been in love a couple of times, but well, it never worked out because of who I am.
Oh. Well, I
It's
ha-
actually a good point because if you look at your personality and when it does a 180, then you suddenly don't love the person that you live with anymore. That caused a lot of problems.
I
And
get you.
so
In
sometimes it took a few days, sometimes a few weeks, and it was just constant drama. It wasn't worth it.
okay. All right. I get you. I get you. So also this fragmented personality uh,
Mhm.
prevents you from like being steady in your feelings, right?
Sorry?
Uh, Fragmented parts of your personality prevent you from being attracted to somebody, like being how to say it, being stable in your feelings.
Yeah, I guess because one day someone would catch my eye and I would be interested for a while,
Uh-huh.
and then a few days later, I can't even remember why I was attracted to that person in the first place, and it just goes away.
Oh. I don't
It's
know how
like
I don't know how that feels. I am very steady in my emotions. Uh,
it's really hard to build a meaningful relationship if your partner isn't quite sure like what she's dealing with.
exactly, exactly. My relationship is very, very deep, and I told
Mm,
my partner that when I'm going into something, I'm going with the boots too. With what I work in the shoes, you know, like
yes.
I step in the shoes in something, and since then we are together, and it's very, very deep relation. So I don't quite understand how it feels for you,
Um,
but you
well, it's
explain it. So
I think you're lucky that you're with someone with whom you have a deep mutual understanding.
hmm I'm very lucky. I know I'm not.
Because in my case, whenever things got like I don't deal well with drama. Like drama and
I hate drama.
fighting is that's
Uh,
like one of the core reasons why I actually developed this fucking thing.
Ouch! I hate that.
So so whenever I'm in some kind of drama, I just completely regress into myself, and if I don't talk about how I'm feeling, then
Yeah,
the other person can't understand what she's dealing with, and then
yeah, yeah.
it's a cycle.
I get what you mean. When I'm like stressed, when I'm in some kind of confrontation, uh, I go into this wonderland, which is my like not real
Ah,
like unreal. For me, it's very real, but it's imagined, and I stay there. Like I'm becoming this Alice in Wonderland, and my mind is drifting somewhere, something like this.
yeah, like you basically create a world inside your mind where everything is going smooth for you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Do you know the movie The Truman Show?
Yeah, of course, with Jim Carrey.
I had a period of time where I was so paranoid that I actually believed that people were all monitoring me, like whatever I did. But
That's very, very psychotic.
yeah, that sucked. But over time, it kind of morphed into this positive thing where I'm kind of like the protagonist of my own show or something.
Oh, I get what you mean. uh,
Well,
you are this
l- you're the
star,
center
you know.
character,
Yeah.
and you direct how everything happens, so you have complete control, and that gives me like a feeling of being able to rest.
That's that's good that it's changed this way. So if it makes you
Yeah,
feel better, then that's good. That's a good thing.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, I'm sure that you've developed your own coping mechanisms as well over time. With
I have it. I imagine that. I mean, my imagination tells me more or less
mm,
that I'm invisible and I can go anywhere and I can, you know, let's say
mm.
last time I did something very stupid at work because I took way too much benzodiazepines and I was bumping on the walls and people saw that. And then I went again to work and I was just imagining that I'm invisible, that they don't see me, that they don't talk about me, stuff like that. Like
Yeah,
mhm.
well, unless they confronted with you directly, like, haha, I saw that happened. And you're, fuck.
People are two-faced to tell you in your face.
Yeah, well, I
They
mean,
will talk behind your back.
I suppose that they would see it as being polite, but it's yeah, like you said, it's kind of two-faced.
Yeah, exactly. I just have this imagination that I stopped existing in this world. I'm Alice in Wonderland in my own head,
Hmm.
and you know I carry on. I usually start drawing then when I can.
Hmm.
Okay, let's check out more symptoms. So, do you have any substance abuse problem?
I think pretty much everyone with a mental disability has.
Yeah, yeah. Cigarettes and alcohol, I guess.
Yes, and marijuana as well, even
Oh,
though I try to keep it on the down low because I don't deal particularly well with psychoactive substances.
that's why you should smoke CBD, not THC. Man,
Well,
come on.
CBD isn't psychoactive, but it doesn't make you high either. So,
But it relaxes you.
yeah, that is true. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but I've only heard good stories
Try
about it.
when you try it when you are like chilled at home. It won't. Maybe it
Hmm.
will become a little bit more sleepy or something. But when you
Yeah,
try it when you are like nervous and when you smoke CBD, you will feel relief.
yeah, it does help with anxiety. I've heard that. That does sound really beneficial.
Yeah, I will buy that from time to time. So maybe let's go quicker because I don't want
Mm.
it to last 5 hours. I mean, I enjoy very much talking with you, and it's great, but we have so more to cover. Do you suffer from amnesia, which is memory loss or feeling a time distortion?
Oh God, it's the worst. Like
Amnesia.
there, yes, yes, especially amnesia, like losing time.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes, and that makes me very paranoid because it's kind of like getting super drunk and then texting your exes
Yeah.
and then not remembering, but it's you don't even realize that you're getting blacked out.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
suddenly somewhere else, and it's so like, a few hours later, and you're like, what the fuck happened? Then I have to check my phone, like, did I talk to someone? That's it's actually
Oh
one of the
my
reasons
god.
why I deleted all of my social media because of that.
Oh, that's reasonable. I will do the same, I guess. I have a different problem because when I'm psychotic, I do weird things like on social media, like on Facebook. I start writing rhymes, very weird rhyming poems. I
Hmm.
rhyme all the time, you know, in my head. I these riddles, and I start acting weird, just weird, like I was high.
Okay.
So you act like you were drunk and blackout, and I act like I was high on something funny, you know. Uh,
Hmm. Doesn't
so
sound too bad.
so amnesia, memory loss. All right.
Well, there's something else. This has been bothering me for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
especially during the times that I'm losing a lot of time. Sometimes um, when I've had a bunch of realistic dreams, then when I remember them later, I'm not sure anymore if they were actually dreams. Like
Okay. Okay.
like
I
oh, maybe
see.
I should apologize to this person because I did that, and then they tell me it never happened. So what the fuck?
Fuck. Okay.
And then
So
other times I thought it was nothing, and then someone came up to me like, "Hey, what you said was really mean." I was like, "What did I
what?
do?"
What? Oh. Okay. That's.
And
I don't have that, but that's interesting.
well, losing time sucks a lot because people, if people have to deal with you in those kind of situations, then they will start thinking you're suspicious or that you lie
Okay.
all the time because you can't remember.
Okay. Yeah. I get you. I get you. I understand. And what about number 11, which is hallucinations, so false perceptions or sensory experiences such as hearing voices?
Um, Not so much, but what I do experience when I'm really angry is like this buzzing noise in my ears
Okay,
for some reason.
I that's that's pretty common.
Okay.
I have that too, but I hallucinate actually when I'm psychotic. But it's not an episode about schizophrenia. It's an episode
Well,
about DID and mild autism.
yeah.
So,
I think
mhm.
I think the biggest discernment is that the hallucinations for me they're more like internal. Instead of thinking that I'm seeing things that aren't real, my problem is that sometimes I'm not sure if uh, what I did myself was real or not. So it
Okay,
makes you second guess yourself.
okay. So I understand. I understand. Um, it's a bit similar to schizophrenia, but also different.
Well, it's in the same camp, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like you have problems with memory. That's why you don't know sometimes if it was real or not. If you did something or were you just sleeping. Uh, and in schizophrenia, you just think that you are like a queen of England and this is real.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Grandiose
right.
delusions and stuff like that.
Yes.
And hallucinations. When I hear hallucinations, I usually cannot tell if they are hallucinations. I don't know if they are real or not.
That must be scary.
It was, but now I'm on good medication, so I get it occasionally. So it's not so bad.
Is it kind of like preparing yourself for a bad trip or something?
Yep. Yeah. Very bad trip. Okay. So what about self-injurious behaviors such as cutting? Do you cut yourself?
No, no, I've never tried.
That's good. Very good.
But there was this one point where it was stupid. I was so disassociated with myself that I started believing that
Yeah.
my body wasn't even mine. And so I tried hitting myself because I was convinced that it shouldn't hurt, but it did anyway. Because
Okay. Okay. That's um, that's interesting.
and instead of hurting myself, I used to have this really aggressive penchant to, especially when people don't understand me, I would like start trashing stuff.
Okay.
And
I won't judge you
the,
because I was trashing stuff few times as well. So, but it doesn't mean that we are dangerous, guys. We
no,
just
no, but you still shoot yourself in the foot because it doesn't really set a good example for other people.
exactly lots of normal people, do that, like
Yeah.
throw things and So it's just reaction. It's not and 13 is suicide risks. 70% of people with DID have attempted suicide. So
Yeah,
70%, that's so much.
I'm not surprised, honestly. Like, uh, if you asked me
Yeah,
10 years ago if I would reach the age of 28, I wouldn't have believed you. Like that didn't seem realistic to me.
I had similar. I was very suicidal back then. But
Mm.
did you ever try to do it?
I tried it twice.
Oh, fuck. Okay. If you don't
Uh,
want, don't tell us.
well, I don't mind. I mean, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm. That's
Like
good that did it. Mm-hmm.
one time I tried suffocating myself, but I just passed out and then woke up back later.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the other time I tried taking a shitload of pills, but I just got sick, and that was it. And I guess I
Yeah.
just suck at killing myself.
I tried few times. Last time I almost succeeded because I took all
Oh,
my antipsychotics, which are olanzapine, and they work also a bit like sleeping pills. And I fell from bed, and my mother heard me, and that's why I'm talking with you because she heard me
yeah.
falling from bed. But it's good that we are alive. We can share our experiences, right? Okay, so these were the symptoms. So, guys, we know something
Mhm.
more about DID now, but mate, could you share with us some of your experiences? Like, what about these other personality
Ah,
characteristics, etc., etc.?
um, it's uh, it's actually hard to explain because it took me decades to actually piece together how my mind actually functions. Because uh, if you're like made up out of um, all kind of social traits that you don't liking sometime after,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you do, and then it's hard to get like a really clear image of yourself. And I think that's one of the core issues when you're trying to develop as a person.
Yes, because you
It's
don't know. Like,
it's like getting cock blocked by your own brain.
oh, hell.
And
uh,
in any given situation, like it doesn't have to be like hitting on someone. Like you could like you have a new job and you want to impress your boss, and the first week goes great, and then something shifts in your mind, and then you start being snapping at people, and even
uh-huh.
though you don't really want to, like you go uh, I think uh, because of stuff like that, I end up talking to myself a lot. Like I actually have heated conversations with myself out loud.
Oh, me too. Me too. People think that
Like,
I'm possessed, like. Uh,
yeah, it's like having a lover's quarrel, but with yourself. It's fucking annoying.
once I was at work and I was talking to myself, and my manager asked me, "Hey, Fridge, why are you talking to yourself?" And I told him, "Because I want to have an interesting discussion." And yeah, that's what I say when some people ask me.
And one of my friends once caught me talking to myself about some kind of political thing or something
Hmm.
that I managed to make personal. And he said like, "Oh, why are you talking to yourself as like you're having a rehearsal or something?" And I'm like, I was actually surprised. Like, you don't? I thought
Hmm.
everyone did that.
Yeah, like in the past they would like burn you at the stake because they will feel that you are talking to Satan or something. But
Yeah,
thanks God we live in these times. It's still not like 100% perfect because there is still like mental illness stigma and lots of discrimination when it comes to people who, let's say, have Down syndrome, like, lots of
yeah.
issues. So uh, do you think that it's possible with people with DID that they have like different personalities, that one personality can be like a female, other personality can be a male, they have different tastes, different allergies, like stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, it didn't occur to me, but there's a person in a therapy group that has the same
Uh-huh.
disorder. it was a girl, and she would go from gay to straight every few months.
Okay. Okay.
It's but even I had some trouble understanding that
So
because like it's not rooted that deeply. I suppose that it affects my sexual preferences.
okay. So I even heard that you can have different allergies and different illnesses. I don't know how this works because this is like it's one organism,
Uh,
but I don't know.
yeah, well, it just goes to prove that how mental situations can affect your body physically.
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
people with a burnout, their levels of like the chemicals in their brain, they get all fucked up because the way they experience things mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
but about having allergies go away or resurface every once in a while. That's so extreme that I haven't experienced that with anyone yet.
Okay. All right. All right, mate. I see that we are getting close to finishing this podcast. Is there anything you would like to say, address some issue, or say hello to someone?
Um, well, I wanted to come back to the point you made about the social stigma uh, on
Yeah,
mental illness,
yeah,
and I don't think it's going away anytime soon because you have to treat it at the root of the problem, which is education.
yep, yep,
Because, for example, like you have this kid, he's like 10 or 12 or 13, whatever, and he gets introduced to mental illness either through school, where he gets to actually
yeah,
meet people
yeah.
who have the issue and get to learn the ins and outs,
Uh-huh.
or you go watch the new Joker movie and then base all of your perspective on that.
Yes, or you can invest in my future project that I'm making because I want to break mental illness stigma in Poland and around the world. I don't know how much mental stigma there is in Netherlands, but
Um,
in Poland, depression is like maybe okay, like stop being sad, you pussy, right? But
yeah,
schizophrenia, Jesus Christ, it's
like how do you explain that to people who've never like
yes. I
like
have
seen such a thing?
I have a plan. I have a plan, and I'm collecting funds from European Union for this
Mhm.
plan. It's a mystery project. I will tell you guys all about it very soon when I get responses from the people I talked with, wrote to it, like, you know. So I bet you that you want the mental illness stigma to be broken too, but how would you do that?
Me, I would uh, go all the way back to government policies and enactments
Yeah,
and restructure the education system in such a way that like kids they don't get taught correctly about a whole bunch of stuff like drugs,
right.
sex, ethics,
Like
and especially mental
mhm.
illness.
Like things that are out there in the world. They don't get anything about to know about it, like about mental illness. I
Yeah.
they
So my sorry,
mhm.
my my solution would be is to uh, educate people from a young age at but it has to be digestible enough for them so they don't form the wrong ideas
Exactly.
because it's really easily to conflate or confuse things when you're talking about something as complex as mental illness.
Exactly. Uh, I don't want fame. I'm not about fame or stuff like that. But I want people to know about my channel and about other channels that are dedicated to mental illness, mental health, uh, and to
Yeah,
breaking the
if it
stigma.
spreads awareness, sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Don't worry. Don't worry. Uh, We
Hey,
are
I support it.
we are yeah, okay, thank you. I want to do this project to work out, and we will see. So maybe I will tell in another episode about it, but for now, thank you so much for your contribution to this channel, for sharing your experiences, and for opening up so other people can learn and about your disorder. So if you have anything more to say, say it now.
Well, I like being able to help to spread awareness because it's a really serious and complex problem
Yeah,
that a lot of people struggle with today. So thank
exactly.
you.
No problem. Anytime we can do another podcast about something different. And for now, thanks again. That was Dissociative Identity Disorder with my mate. Thank you for listening and bye.